I feel like every time I watch conference or I'm scrolling through Instagram and I'm following one of the apostles or the prophet or listening to Inklings, there's so much good information and every single thing rings true to me and it lifts me and it just helps me with my life and helps me with my day. But I've had such good people around me and I can think back the times when I first started noticing how grateful I am for the gospel, how grateful I am for the sisters that are around me, and how strengthened I've been by them with ministering. It all started really with Sarah. She's our oldest. She's 27 years old and she's my first baby. I had lots of time to get ready. We tried to have a baby for a few years and didn't know if we were going to get one. She was born when I was 28, and so we really, really were excited. And when she was born, she was beautiful and healthy, but the doctors said right away she has some sort of a syndrome. So it was difficult. We didn't know what to think about that because they said it's nothing that we can diagnose. It's nothing that we have seen before, but it is definitely a syndrome, and it looks like she will have mental retardation and all kinds of physical problems. They told us not to count on her walking or talking. She's classified as deafblind without her glasses and hearing aids. When we found out that she needed hearing aids and glasses and help with walking, there's a special little preschool that she went to, and she'd go get on the bus when she was 3, and sometimes she would come home and she would be missing her hearing aids. And the hearing aids are not cheap, so we were very, very, very worried when she came home and they weren't there. We tried calling the school who got a hold of the bus driver and they weren't on the bus. And so we drove and we're looking alongside the road because the preschool's in the summertime and they'd have the windows down. We thought she could have just plopped them right out. But we made it back to the school, looked in the parking lot, and they had been run over, but they were there. We found them, and we were able to get the repairs made that we needed to and didn't have to buy all new. So that was a real blessing. And of course, we prayed and prayed and prayed. Starting out with a child, we had student loan debt. It was like things were tight. So it was such a blessing to be able to feel inspired and be able to find those and have people help us. At first, when she was born, I met some other parents who had older kids, and they said, we really are at a loss because there's no physical therapy in town for pediatrics, so we have to drive to Primary Children's. I feel like it was a blessing that I was able to meet other parents, and one of the parents was so forward and vocal that she basically demanded from the hospital administrator that they bring a pediatric program to Logan. And she went to the Herald Journal and made it very, very known that that was what was lacking in services. And at first, Logan Regional said, no, there's not enough kids that need it. But she gathered a bunch of us up and we continued to ask. I feel like she was an angel in my life because when Sarah turned 3, sure enough, Logan Regional Hospital had opened up a pediatric unit that had physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech, all of which our daughter needed too. I've been blessed by just good people around me, exactly there when I needed them and when Sarah needed them, and they've been a blessing to me and my family. And I know that all of these little coincidences aren't just coincidences. Another time, when I was expecting my second baby, Sarah was 5. We were at Bear Lake. My sister-in-law was pregnant too, so we were just sitting there, and couldn't move very fast, and it was a dry year, so you could wait out quite a ways. It was very safe. So Sarah was waiting out there with the other cousins, and we had an eye on them. We were just facing the water, visiting, when all of a sudden, Steve's mom, my mother-in-law, said, "Where is Sarah?" And I looked to where she was along the water, and she was not there. And my heart just, I felt like I was going to die right then. My husband jumped up, my mother-in-law ran. Somehow she had been prompted to know exactly. Steve got to the water had gotten deep. Sarah had just gone under the water, and he pulled her up and ran back to the shore, up to the sand with her. And I said, "Sarah, are you okay?" And she said, "Yes." And she wasn't crying, she wasn't upset. And I said, "Well, you were under the water. Weren't you scared? Didn't that make you, weren't you frightened? You didn't have any problems?" She said, "No, I knew someone would get me." And she just apparently hadn't inhaled any water. She was just fine. It was that fast. Miracles and ministers are here. Heavenly Father and Jesus know us. They love us. They're here for us. And we're blessed. We're blessed because of the people around us. When it was time to send Sarah to school, I really, really worried, her being my first child, to go to school. I didn't know what that would be like, but we had some really good neighbors in the neighborhood, and my mom said, "You know what? She's grown up in the neighborhood. She's gone to church. She knows the kids. They will watch out for her." And sure enough, that was exactly the way it was. But it still sometimes kind of hurt my heart when there would be a birthday or something that she would be left out of. And that happened, every year. There would be things going on, and I could just see the other kids passing her by with her special needs. But one year, there was an invitation in our mailbox. It came from a little girl named Carly, who was just an angel in Sarah's life. She invited Sarah to her birthday party, and we weren't in the same ward, and I didn't even know them. But the mom was willing and encouraged her daughter to invite that little girl. And Sarah went and had the best time. And then later in high school, Carly was a special peer tutor to Sarah. And then later after that, we had moved just a little bit and our ward split, and we were in the same ward. So Sarah was able to go to Young Women's with her and just enjoy a really good friendship with her that I think helped probably even with the other girls accepting Sarah and seeing you can talk to someone with special needs, and you can joke around with someone with special needs, and you can be friends with someone with special needs. And to me, as a mom, I think it's the same for every mom. You get a special understanding of that verse. If ye have done it unto one of the least of these, my brethren, ye have done it unto me. And mothers feel that, I think, especially. So that was really a blessing to me. It probably absolutely meant as much to me as it did to Sarah. So the blessings were multiplied in that instance. Sarah still lives with us. She's 27 now, and I was called to be Young Women president. And by this time, Sarah was out of high school. We had been attending Relief Society, but then when I got called to be in Young Women's, sometimes Sarah would come with me, and that was great. But the women in our ward were awesome. They said, "Let us help you with her." And when she wanted to go to Relief Society, she had ladies to sit with. It has meant so much to me to know that she's welcome, and the women are following Jesus, and they love everyone, and everyone's welcome. These are things that weren't done by actual ministers that are called to serve me. These are just things that people do because they're following Christ. Another time, my husband was doing ministering, and he was ministering to a couple who didn't have children yet, but they had 3 or 4 cats. And Steve mentioned that our other daughter loves animals, but that we don't have any because I'm allergic. And since they didn't have kids, they would travel quite a bit. And they called our daughter, Lauren, and asked her if she would mind cat sitting, and she loved it. It was the best thing ever. It was so good for her because teenage years can be rough, and the comfort of animals and getting to know other adults, I think, is really important for for kids. And she was able to develop a relationship with the wife. Her name's Emily. It made a difference in her life. They've got 2 little twin girls now, and we babysat for them, and they've just become more and more important in both of our lives. And that's all because of ministering. And my husband, the funny thing is he was supposed to be ministering to them, but they actually ministered to us through our daughter. I have diamond art that Sarah has been obsessed with, and when I help her with it, I notice that usually there'll be 50 different colors, these little teeny tiny plastic gems that go to make a beautiful design. The design wouldn't happen without each one of the little gems. And I know that Heavenly Father knows that we're all that important. His design, His plan for us wouldn't happen without others to help along the way. And with the diamond art, I noticed that there won't be just one little piece. Usually it takes 3 or 4 in a cluster. Very rarely will you see one by itself. Basically, there will always be 2 or 3 or 4. And looking at that, I thought that's kind of like us. We need each other. We might not be strong enough on our own. Heavenly Father didn't mean for us to ever have to struggle through alone or to be everything all by ourselves. That's why we have each other, and that's, I think, the beauty of Relief Society and of sisterhood in the gospel.